up, fight fans? This is DenverSportsBetting.com MMA preview show sponsored by the MMA Plug. DenverSportsBetting.com, your one-stop shop for all Colorado sports. Check them out for coverage of all your local Colorado sports teams and, of course, the UFC and MMA and wagering advice, of course, betting previews as well. I'm Ron Kruck. I am the voice of the Legacy Fighting Alliance on UFC Fight Pass, joined as always by my partner, Colorado MMA journalist Jordan Kurtz. Hey, Jordan, we had a lot on the line last week, my man. I mean, with our predictions at UFC 253, I mean, more than just bragging rights, Jordan. I mean, this was a massive bet, life-changing things. We had a six-pack of choice on the line. It really doesn't get bigger than that, but unfortunately, we tied.
An even split, 1-1. It's a push. What can you do?
Unbelievable. I guess we got to go back out firing. Hey, I got to give you some credit. Number one, you were spot on with Adesanya making easy work of Paulo Costa. I mean, what in the world? Hey, KO expert, maybe if you threw a punch during the fight, that could have helped things. I don't know. That was a bad choice by the only way he won that fight was if he actually knocked the champion out and he doesn't throw a punch. That killed me. But I was correct in taking Jan Blachowicz, who dominated Dominic Reyes. So we were 1-1 that way.
Yep. And, I will have to say that on one side, I was not very surprised. I did think that was going to be – it was just going to be a Matador and a Bull situation with Israel. He's so tactical, and he made it an emphasized point in his post-fight press conference to say that, yes, this may only be, a small number in terms of totality for his MMA career, but that was his 100th win in fighting. So, for those who aren't really familiar with his background, he has more than 80 kickboxing fights. Right. So that being said, he's had a lot of experience making this walk. And with him being a striking technician, he's had to be in that exact situation many a times with a bull in a china closet that's coming ready just to knock his head off. And if you picked up right before the fight started, Ron, Paulo made a lot of mention of Izzy being the skinny guy the entire build up to the fight. Izzy, if you go back and you look at his face right before they start the fight, you see him staring at Costa right across the ring or right across the cage. And he says, "I'll show you who the skinny guy is." So Izzy just has a knack for these moments,
Totally. Absolutely.
And then on the flip side, Jan, oh my God, that Polish power is real.
He is on fire too. I mean, he has just really come into his own. That fight game has elevated, and his punching power was on display. I was pretty shocked at what he did to the athletic and really just as tough as they come, Dominic Reyes. But Jan looked really good, and I gotta say, this is why you come to DenverSportsBetting.com's MMA preview show, because you, my man, have been on fire the past 2 weeks with not only predicting the winner, but the method. Again, you hit second straight week, this time with Brandon Royval by way of submission. Bam, you called it. I got to give you props, brother.
You hear that beeping going on? That's just the Brinks truck that's coming with my bet slip.
Yeah, someone's getting paid.
Yes, sir. Hey, and I made a lot of people money all throughout the weekend there. I cannot tell you the flood of messages, Ron, that I had hitting my inbox of just the steak emoji with the dog. That's what Brandon always puts out there for Raw Dog, for his nickname. And just people just sending me, tons of messages about that. Like, oh my God, like you got it. Wow. Just the whole thing. It was incredible. That's awesome. To see all the accounts grow exponentially, that's a great feeling.
You bet it is, man. It doesn't happen much, so you got to ride those out. You've been on fire. Can't wait to hear your picks this week. I mean, I will give myself some props, too. I hit a no-brainer with Jake Matthews. Hopefully, you got him in a parlay because he was a major favorite going in against the aging Diego Sanchez. But We are back at it, Jordan, week 2 on Fight Island. And yes, it's going to be a tough act to follow, UFC 253, but the ladies will give it a shot as former UFC bantamweight champion and number 2 ranked Holly Holm returns to face another formidable striker in number 6 ranked Irania Aldana from Mexico. You know, really, you look at this on paper, it's a classic former champ versus rising star matchup that could produce the next title challenger. Now, this fight, some background, was originally scheduled for August 1st, but Aldana was forced to withdraw after testing positive for COVID. And if you heard her in her press conference, she was really sick during that time. So it's great to see her bounce back and get this opportunity. The storyline in this main event, really, the Jackson Wink MMA Academy product, Holly Holm, trying to prove she still has enough gas in the tank to maybe make another title run. It's crazy to think that she's gone 3-5 since her famous head kick knockout of Ronda Rousey. But she said in her press conference, this is what I do. If you're not fighting to get that title, why are you fighting? For Aldana, she's returning to the octagon for the first time this year, and a signature victory over a former champion would prove that she is a real threat to Amanda Nunes's belt at 135 pounds. She's trying to keep the momentum she's built from last year when she went 3-1 in 2019. She is 5-1 overall in the UFC. This main event preview is sponsored by Awning Company of America, one of the largest manufacturers of custom commercial and residential awnings in the United States, and a local Colorado company since 1970. Check them out at awningofamerica.com. The odds currently, as of this recording, for the main event has Holly Holm a slight favorite. She is coming in at -120. Irania Aldana is underdog at +100. Current odds, of course, coming in from denversportsbetting.com. Jordan, very intriguing main event. Give us your take.
Now, Ron, you did mention Holly's recent record since that infamous head kick against Ronda Rousey when she won that women's bantamweight title. But I think it is also important to note that this is not truly indicative of what Holly's ability still is, or where she's at really and truly within that division, or within the sport as a whole, I should say, because though that record is across 2 separate divisions, that also includes when she went up to 145. As we mentioned, she did fight in that title bout, that inaugural 145 title bout against Jermaine Durandamy. So that was not only up a weight class, but that was highly controversial with a couple of illegal shots that were landed after the bell, which, in my opinion, significantly impacted the fight. If we take a look at a couple of those other losses within that time frame, those were main event title fight losses as well. One of those was to Miesha Tate, in which she was fairly dominant through the majority of the fight, except for when she got into that grappling exchange and let Miesha take her back. We all know that the next day she put that photo up of her in the gi, ready to train. You know, Holly just has such an incredible mindset as well. She's so positive, and it seems like she has that true athletic, short mind frame to where, hey, that happened yesterday. What's happening today? You know, I don't care about what happened then. Let's get better today. Let's focus on what's right here and now in front of us.
Yeah.
Also, another one of those was against the female greatest of all time. That was against Amanda Nunes. So when we take all of those things into account, it's not like Holly's taken losses to cans. Her losses are to the best of the best out there within this
100%,
sport.
you're right.
I think that the major difference within this, and it's not anything to knock Aldana by any means, because I do think that she is a very formidable opponent. I just think that it's going to come down to Holly's wrestling. She's gotten a lot more work on the mats within her grappling and using that offensive wrestling, being able to work off of the wall and just using her size to weigh down opponents instead of always having to worry about the point fighting game from the outside, because I do believe to a certain aspect she may have gotten a little bit predictable. Holly, if you notice, when Holly fights, she always is a little bit more verbal when she's going for her actual strikes that she's committing on versus her non-committal shots or her feints. So maybe that's something that was starting to be a tell. I don't know the right answer to that question, but I think now that she has a more dynamic game as she's continued to put the work in, I think that we'll see an even better Holly Holm, just someone who's sharper all the way around and is more evolved. That's what I would say.
It's an interesting take. You are exactly right that she has faced the best of the best during her career. But at 38 years old, I'm beginning to see signs that she is slowing down and this incredible career could be coming to a close. You know, you look back before she even got into MMA. Remember, she had 38 professional boxing matches and 22 kickboxing fights before moving full-time to mixed martial arts. That's a lot of wear and tear. And I think it really showed in Holm's last fight, that rematch against Raquel Pennington, which she won. However, it was not, how do I say this, a good performance. It was, she seemed tentative. She seemed lacking a little confidence, which I have never seen with Holly Holm. But even more important, I think I saw she was a step slower. You know, now she faces, in my opinion, Jordan, really one of the few viable contenders that may be ready to challenge champion Amanda Nunes's reign. The former Invicta FC standout. Listen, she started slowly in her UFC career, but she has reeled off 5 wins in 6 bouts now. You know, a volume striker that relentlessly moves forward, hunting down her opponent. I think her takedown defense is underrated. She has that extreme punching power, 6 career knockout victories, but also very solid on the ground with 3 wins coming by way of submission. The X factor for me, Jordan, really, who needs this fight more? When it comes down to that, this may be Holm's last chance to earn that, title shot and another shot at Amanda Nunes. And, truthfully, to be honest, she does come in at number 2, but really to stay relevant in the bantamweight division. So Aldana, in my opinion, could bounce back from losing to a bigger name and a higher ranked Holm than Holm would bounce back if she is able to, if she loses this fight. So that's the setup. Interesting main event. And now it's time for our picks. Our picks are sponsored by 3AM Water, hydration for the go-getters. Check them out at 3amwater.com. Jordan, the spotlight is on you, my man.
Give me the preacher's daughter. I think that in that instance, just like you said, she's going to have a sense of urgency out there. I think Holly is self-aware enough to where she's heard the whispers. Just like you mentioned, she didn't look the greatest in that last fight with Raquel Pennington. It is worth noting that Raquel Pennington is as tough as it gets, and Raquel hits hard. So maybe, after feeling some of the strength right away, that put her a little bit tentative, but it is fair. That is a very fair assessment of her last bout. I just maybe it's the nostalgia. We've had some of these fighters on these last couple of cards, these last few weeks, that they're on the edge of that, that conversation point that Dana's constantly referenced with them in these last few press conferences.
Great point. We've talked a lot about fighters like this recently.
And maybe it's just it's hard for me to let go of just the way that Holly was able to captivate all of us, throughout that whole entire run leading up to the fight with Ronda. Nobody gave her the chance. She goes out. She has the kick that was heard around the world. She's a sweetheart in any sort of opportunity that she has with the media or with fans. So maybe it's just hard for me to let go of Holly Holm.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with it. I think that Holly has a sense of urgency, and I think she gets it done this weekend against the surging prospect in Arena Aldana.
Yeah, I hear you, man. It's been an incredible journey to see where Holm has come from to where she is. I was fortunate. I called a couple of her fights back in the Legacy FC promotion, including the one where she won the the belt in 2014 when she took out Juliana Werner via head kick and punches in the 5th round of that championship bout. And we saw it early on. You know, she comes in with the boxing pedigree and the kickboxing background. We knew she was going to go on to huge things in the UFC. And and she did that with, just as you mentioned, that legendary upset of Ronda Rousey. I mean, that was so huge at the time. We were at HDNet doing Inside MMA, and I remember Mark Cuban getting us together and saying, whoever you have on this week as guests, forget it. We're doing a Holly Holm special. Sent us all down to Albuquerque to really just tell the story of who she was and where she came from. I mean, that was a historic upset, but that seems like a long time ago, man. And I hate to say it, but I think, you know, with a loss here, she becomes kind of the gatekeeper for future contenders. Although flat out, she says the right things. I mean, her drive is still there. She wants the belt, and that's why she's doing it. I think if she can control the distance, land some of her signature counter strikes, that will bode well for her. But I want to see her come out with that confidence that she's had before, and I just didn't see it in her last fight. Speaking of confidence, I mean, Aldana is as confident as LeBron James is going against the Denver Nuggets. I mean, she spoke about it in her press conference. Her eyes are focused on Nunes right now. I mean, she gained some invaluable cage experience last year, fighting 4 times in 8 months. And I really see that her fight game is still evolving. You know, I think she'll come out crazy aggressive. I think her goal will be to wear Holm down. And if she is able to come away with a win over that former title holder, she will truly become a viable challenger to Amanda Nunes' reigns. My heart says Holly Holm, but my pick, and I think my wallet, says Aldana. So I'm going to go with the underdog in this one and the rising star. Current odds, as of this recording, Holly Holm is the slight favorite, according to DenverSportsBetting.com and DraftKings. She comes in at a -120, and the comeback on Aldana is at +100.
And when we're talking about betting with your head versus your heart, there's definitely all the value sits on the Aldana side. Full disclosure, people, that is just me not being able to let go of Holly.
Yep, I get it. And great point. I mean, maybe this is one of those fights you just crack open a nice adult beverage and sit back and watch. But we're being paid to make the pick, so there you go. Jordan's going with Holm in this one, and I'll take the underdog in Aldana. Thanks for being a part of the DenverSportsBetting.com MMA preview show. We are powered by the MMA Plug. For the latest features, articles, and of course, betting previews, check out DenverSportsBetting.com. I am Ron Kruck. I am the voice of the Legacy Fighting Alliance on UFC Fight Pass. He is Colorado MMA journalist Jordan Kurtz, and we are previewing the UFC Fight Night / ESPN 13 event going down October 3rd from Fight Island. All right, Jordan, the big boys get co-main event billing for this one at UFC Fight Night as the hard-hitting Yorgan De Castro and Carlos Felipe throw down. And I mean, let's just be honest, this is going to be a true slugfest. Both men are looking to rebound from their first professional defeats. Felipe lost a majority decision, a very close one, to Sergey Spivak, and De Castro lost to former NFL player turned mixed martial artist Greg Hardy in a fight that he seemed to be winning early on. Man, I mean, with the power of both of these guys, combined 11 career knockouts. I mean, maybe the judges will take the evening off for the co-main event because this likely will not go the distance. Current odds as of this recording coming in from DenverSportsBetting.com and DraftKings. Yorgan De Castro is your favorite in this one. He is -260. The comeback on Carlos Felipe is +220. Jordan, the co-main event may lack the name power, but it will not lack the punching power.
100%. You hit the nail on the head. There will be some explosive bombs thrown between these two big boys. When you take a look at it from this perspective, you can, as a fan, especially, you know, some of the casual level fans, and there's some other names on the card that you recognize, and you may think, well, why wasn't, you know, a Carlos Condit or, you know, Jermaine Durandamy or some of these other veteran names out there put within this slot. But I also think that this is an incredible opportunity for the UFC to put a couple of their young up-and-coming stars or potential stars in a division that really could use a breath of fresh air outside of those top few contenders. This is going to help kind of add a little bit of jolt to whoever comes out of this matchup on top's public profile. And if they both come out throwing bombs, it's a chance to where one of them is going to lose, but they may not lose in terms of, you know, their public favor, public perception. You know how that can go, Ron. Sometimes when you have two guys who go out there and have a war, yes, sure, one guy loses, but his stock within the company, his stock within the public grows because of the heart, the warrior, you know, the sportsmanship, whatever it may be that they display while they're out there in the cage. Point. That's what I think might be a thing that is kind of going underneath the radar. And I'm trying to put myself in the promoter's shoes to see how they're able to sell this, or what the thought process would be. Just trying to look at it from all aspects and bring in the business into it.
Yep, absolutely. Nope, I get it. And you've got to create those stars. As we mentioned earlier, breaking down the main events, you know, we've spoke the last few weeks about some of these cards where there are a lot of veterans who are on that thin line of you know, going into retirement or at least cutting back some of their fights. So you've got to build up your young superstars. So I 100% get it. And that's a reason why the Legacy Fighting Alliance has put so many fighters into the UFC here recently, because they need that reload of fresh and young fighters coming in. But bottom line, you know, fight fans want to see a great fight. And I think that this co-main event has the making of that. You know, you look down as we break this fight down, De Castro, he took the route of the Contender Series to get to the UFC, and after earning that contract, he had made a successful UFC debut. He took out Justin Tafa with a beautiful counter right to finish him. That was back at UFC 243. His bid for 2 in a row fell short when he lost to Hardy, but an injury. He broke his foot early into that fight. So, of course, that was a big factor. You know, De Castro, I've seen him fight back in the day in the CES organization back east, Jimmy Birchfield Jr., and that group has put together some great fights over the years. So they never put together easy fights, that's for sure. So De Castro cutting his teeth in the CES organization, where he went 3-0, has some tough fights under his belt. He is 32 years old, 7 years older than Felipe. You know, Felipe, he lost to Spivak. That was his return to action after 3 years off. So I think he's back in a routine and in a fight camp. The ring rust should be gone. And hopefully he has better conditioning, because he sure gassed out towards the end of that fight. But he's only 25 years old, and he packs some KO power as well. The X factor for me coming into this fight, Jordan, is check your head. Where are these two mentally after suffering, you know, that first professional defeat? I've heard it over and over throughout the years. The UFC Hall of Famer Pat Miletich, who sits next to me for all LFA fights, has told me so many times how a defeat can be such a more beneficial for a fighter than a victory sometimes. So who is able to, you know, put that first professional defeat behind them? And now, you know, how do they deal with that pressure? Because you don't want to lose 2 fights in a row in the UFC. That's for sure. You must just put that loss behind you and move on. All right, our picks are sponsored by 3 a.m. Water, hydration for the go-getters. Check them out at 3amwater.com. You will definitely want to see these guys and try this product. All right, Jordan, picks time. Who you got?
I think I'm going to go with DeCastro in this one. I think that his kickboxing is as long as he doesn't re-break that foot or find himself in a compromised position early on, I think that he has the tools to be able to just implement the right strategy. I like what he was able to do, just like you mentioned early on against Greg Hardy. But, Greg Hardy's just he's a different guy in there. He's raw, he's not very refined.
So athletic, but not your true martial artist.
Right, exactly. You're just talking about, when you're hitting a guy who's used to normally on Sundays running up against men much larger than him as it was. Yeah. That's like, kicking or punching a piece of granite, in many different ways. So I don't think that that's always going to be something that's truly indicative, or if someone is really going to say, oh no, the way that DeCastro looked, especially in those later rounds, you have to take all things into the equation here. I think that he works with a solid group. He's very open in terms of his training regimen, and I like his energy. There's just something about DeCastro that there's something, whenever he talks, he has this way of just, I'm interested.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is or what, I can't put my finger on it exactly, but he's captivated my interest.
Is it a little bit of a man crush is what I'm just going to throw out there.
Maybe long hair. I don't know.
All right, there you go. Same haircut. I get it. You guys got to stick together. Both of these heavyweights, Jordan, to me, have a chance to make some waves in the division. They're still very early in their careers, but as I just mentioned, being on a 2-fight skid in the UFC is never a good thing. I think the winner will emerge as a prospect that will have some opportunities. When you put 2 knockout artists into the cage and they're going to throw down, one punch can end this. That is, unless you go the Costa route and don't throw a punch during the fight. I'm not bitter, though. I think this is going to be a fun fight, and that's the bottom line. I think this is going to be 2 guys going in and swinging and just making this into a slugfest. I think this fight is going to be a lot closer than the odds makers are seeing it. So when I look at that and both guys have 1 punch power, well, why not go with the underdog and take the odds? So I'm going to go with the upset and go with Carlos Felipe. I think that either of these men can end it in an instant, but I'm going to put my money down. I'm going to try to make some as well and go with the underdog. So Jordan, there you go. You're going with DeCastro. I'm going with Felipe. I'm going with Aldana. You're going with Holm. I think we have our huge bet on the line again, 6-pack of choice. Ooh, here we go.
Also, I think that it should be mentioned for all the listeners out there, Ron, that I think that it's a safe bet that in this co-main event that you bet or that you take some action on the not going to the cards. That it ends ends at a finish. Exactly.
100%.
Yep.
I'm
bumbling my words. Yep.
So we're going different opponents, but we're both agreeing that this fight should not go to the judges' scorecards. Current odds of this recording from DenverSportsBetting.com and DraftKings, Jorgen DeCastro is the favorite at -260, and Carlos Felipe, the comeback on the underdog, is +220. Well, this is DenverSportsBetting.com's MMA preview show, powered by the MMA Plug. For the latest features, articles, and betting previews, check out DenverSportsBetting.com. Ron Kruck with Jordan Kurtz, as always, as we are previewing the UFC Fight Night / ESPN 13 event going down on Fight Island in Abu Dhabi. Main event, Holm and Aldana. Time now, though, in the show to check out a fight or a fighter that we are keeping an eye on. Some interesting matchups, Jordan, for sure. Some new blood on this card mixed with some old school guys. Who's in your spotlight this week?
I'm going to put the spotlight on Casey Kenny. I think that Casey Kenny is a very underrated prospect in that 135 division. He's a guy who's a former LFA champion. We've had teammates from my camp that have gone against him in the LFA. Yep. One of them being Brandon Royval, and that was an absolute war when they fought.
Unreal.
His lone loss in the UFC is Merab Davishvili. Keep in mind, look at exactly where Merab is and what this meteoric rise for him has been. So if that's your lone stub of the toe, and you've had some other big names in the process that you've been able to find, winning in the UFC is hard. I don't care what anybody says.
Exactly.
And to be to continue to rack up wins and to be on the plus side with your record, there's something to be said for that. Casey Kenny trains with a solid group at the training lab down there in Arizona, Coach John Crouch and the boys. That's to me, that's what the difference maker is. I really like Casey Kenny in this matchup this weekend.
Yeah, Casey Kenny, I've called several of his fights. You mentioned the Brandon Royval fight. That was back in 2018. Got a unanimous decision victory, but that was a street fight. Casey, the only two-division LFA champion in history. So the kid is as talented as they come. He's 14-2-1. Definitely, if he gets another win, that'll be, I believe, his fourth victory since moving on to the UFC. Definitely a top prospect to keep an eye on. I like that pick. For me, Jordan, I'm going to go old school because I'm old and old guys rule. And my feature fight this week is the welterweight matchup between former interim champ Carlos Condit and former tough, I believe, season 11 winner Court McGee. Yes, this fight would have been a lot more exciting if it was happening, let's say, 5 years ago. But these are two grizzled vets who are both in desperate need of their first victory in quite some time. So that puts a lot of intrigue into this. Now, okay, full disclosure, these two have a combined 1-9 record through their last 5 UFC appearances each. And honestly, I mean, they have noticeably been slowing down in each bout. Boy, I'm really selling this. There goes my job as a UFC PR guy. But how's this? I mean, these are two proud, driven veterans with a combined 72 fights who will leave every ounce they have inside that octagon in order to put on a good show for MMA fans. So there you go. And I mean, really, as you look at it with those stats that I mentioned, whoever loses this could be cut. So that pressure is on as well. As of this recording, the odds are very close, according to DenverSportsBetting.com. Carlos Condit is a slight underdog at plus 105. Court McGee, the favorite, at minus 130. Now, I mean, the natural-born killer Condit is, as I said, the former welterweight interim champ. He's provided MMA fans with some incredible matchups in that division. He's always in the top 5 throughout, his first 6 or 7 years in the UFC. But he is on the back 9 of his career and on a 5-fight losing streak. I mean, it's crazy for me to say this. I mean, Jordan, he hasn't earned a victory since May of 2015. That's insane. Now, he has faced the top competition the UFC has to throw at him. Just 2-8 since claiming that interim belt against Nick Diaz at UFC 143. Yes, 143. Oh, my God, I'm old. Court McGee, listen, fun dude, former tough season 11 winner, has an incredible backstory. but he has slowed down as well since winning the show back in 2010. Went 0-2 last year, dropping a split decision to Diego Lima, and then a unanimous decision against Sean Brady his last time out. He is facing maybe the first 3-fight slide of his career. X factor for me in this one, Jordan, is really who's healthy. I mean, the 35-year-old veteran McGee has dealt with injuries consistently over the past few years, and so has Condit, but Condit has taken roughly 2 years off since his last UFC appearance, giving him and his body some much needed time to heal up. So this one for me, it's more of a watch fight. I mean, this is one, just sit back, grab an adult beverage and enjoy it. I'm a fan of both of these guys. They've had some massive fights in the octagon, always deliver action. Unfortunately, the loser might not be fighting in the octagon much longer. If Condit loses to McGee, to me, I hate to say it, but probably shows he doesn't have what it takes to compete in the UFC at this point. On the flip side, if McGee loses and turns, his UFC record, I think, goes down to 1-5 then in his last 6 appearances, good chance that the UFC does not re-sign him. I think, again, the X factor, the long layoff will help Condit. I think he's faced better opponents throughout the years. I think he will be the one to break that 5-fight losing streak, earn a very hard-fought victory. As I said, don't love the pick. Just enjoy this fight.
I think that's a crazy pick, if I'm being completely honest with you, Ron.
Thank you.
Now, if we're taking a look, yes, in those last 2 fights that Court had, did he suffer a loss? Yes. But let's take a look at those fights real quick and just look at the final portion of it. That loss to Diego Lima, that split decision, one of those judges did see it in Court's favor, and it was controversial at that. There was a pretty wide, 50-50 split amongst most of the Twitter sphere and the people viewing that fight at that time. And then if you take a look at the Sean Brady fight, Sean Brady is a very tough young savage.
Yeah,
the way that
prospect.
that fight ended, Ron, if you saw the way that the fight ended, Court was
close. Yep.
And breaking Sean Brady.
Yeah.
You give him another little bit. Court is one of those old school gangsters who he's just like the James Krause mentality. Hey, you may be putting the pressure on me for 4 minutes and 59 seconds, but that 1 second that you let up, I'm still going to be right there in your face, and I'm going to bring it to you in that one opportunity that I get. That is who Court McGee is. He is called the Crusher for a reason. Court has just this unrelenting pressure in which he moves forward. I think that he will not allow Condit to stay within kicking range, which I see as the only possible way for Condit to maybe win this fight. Condit, on the flip side, has not looked good in his losses.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a tale of two different.
You get your heartfelt pick of Holm. I get my feeling back to the old days of Carlos Condit. No, I'm with you.
That's fair. That's fair. Both New Mexico.
Yeah, and both Jackson Wink products, of course. Yeah, as I said, this is not my. This is not the lock of the year. This is a watch fight. I think it's going to be fun to see. It's just good to have Carlos Condit back into the octagon, and Court McGee too. He's a great story. I love how you describe him. He is a gangster. Should be a good fight if Carlos has anything left in the tank. And one of those guys that, as soon as you count him out, he kind of surprises you.
Yep. Just ask that special troops, that special forces guy that you've heard this story. We've all heard this. All fight fans have, at least.
100%. Yep. And closing odds as of this recording, again, Condit, I think he's coming in with riding off his name. He's just a +105, and Court McGee is the favorite at -130. Well, Jordan, that's going to do it for another Denver Sports Betting MMA preview show, sponsored, of course, by the MMA Plug. Jordan, going to be a fun night of fights. Enjoy them, my man.
Absolutely. You too.
All right. Check back for more UFC event previews on denversportsbetting.com. And of course, follow us on Twitter. I am at @Kruck. Jordan is at Peanut Podcast. And of course, check out at Betting Denver. On Instagram, they are Denver Sports Betting. And comments from the Peanut Gallery. I am Krucker7 on Instagram. For Jordan Kurtz, I'm Ron Kruck. Enjoy the fights, and that is all.